Hello everybody, my name is Michael Laubscher, and earlier this year I enjoyed an 8-night safari in the Brazilian Pantanal. If you'd like more updates, stay tuned for this one. Our 8-night stay in Brazil started in Cuiabá. Most flights channel through Sao Paulo and then from Sao Paulo into Cuiabá. The group meets there, we spend our first night, and from that point onwards we spent 7 nights at Porto Jofre along the Cuiabá River. Now, the first night is the meet and greet, dinner, everyone gets to know each other, and then early the next morning we take the 4.5-5 hour journey from Cuiabá by vehicle to Porto Jofre. Now, the reason we did this is just in terms of timings and arrival at the lodge and check-in, but it also gives us the opportunity to travel on a very, well, in the area, famous road called the Transpantaneira road, which is about a 150 kilometer stretch of dirt road from just outside the town of Poconé. That's the first, or the last bit of civilization that you would experience before traveling down towards Porto Jofre. Now, this dirt road is the road that links civilization to Porto Jofre, which is the area that we stay at during our Jaguars of the Pantanal Safari. And what makes this road, or what's kind of most people know about this road, is the amount of bridges on it and the amount of wildlife you get to see throughout that 150 kilometer journey. So throughout that journey, you'll cross over about 122 bridges. Many of them have been reconstructed into solid concrete bridges. I remember the first time I ever drove that road, man, that was something that was scary because a lot of them were just kind of wooden bridges that were built by locals in the area to get to and from. And the farmers in that area kind of maintained them. With the massive flooding and burning that had happened over the recent years, a lot of those bridges got seriously damaged, and they've now gone in and constructed concrete structures. So it's a lot more of an enjoyable experience now traveling down on this Transpantaneira road. There's a beautiful sign that you can stand under and take a photo of the group or yourself and keep going. But you can see a lot of wildlife on this road. We had incredible bird life along it, tons of caiman, capybaras. We saw spotted deer, marsh deer, a few reptiles. And so if you do take your time and slowly cruise along it, you will see a lot, because from just outside Poconé all the way through to Porto Jofre, that 150 kilometer stretch is all this massive Brazilian wetland. The Pantanal is, if you don't know this, the largest tropical wetland in the world. And the time of year that we visit, being the dry months, so when there is no rain, there's still a lot of water in the Pantanal. But the dry months is when it is best for game viewing, like jaguars, caimans, birds, and all those kinds of things. And this is the reason why we spend between July and October or early October in these areas, is because it just increases the chance of really good and prolific game viewing. And then in the wet months, that whole entire area, about 80% of that land becomes flooded and waterlogged, and rivers rise, and it's a whole different experience. Obviously, all the mosquitoes and horseflies also arrive. I've been there one year in the early rains, or when the rains have arrived early, and it was an interesting experience. The amount of mosquitoes and horseflies was something that, I don't know how I would describe, and something I would never want to experience again. But we were very fortunate this time around. Was dry conditions, we had really good game viewing, and we spent a good amount of time at Porto Jofre. 7 full nights, giving us 8 days on the river, and therefore with that came incredible jaguar viewing. There were, I think if I had to think back, probably about 15 individual cats that we got to see, and of those we obviously saw them multiple times throughout the day. We probably had about, I would say, 40 plus jaguar sightings in total during that week. So it really was a productive and enjoyable trip. It wasn't only Jaguar, there was so much more, and I'll get to that. But what I really enjoy about this trip is that it's so different to most African safaris, is because it's all water-based. You're sitting on a boat and you're zooming across the river. So there's no bumpiness, there's no dust flying into your face, and it's just a very tranquil, healing experience. I find water very healing. So it really is a beautiful start to a day when you're zooming across and there's mist on the water, the sun is rising, you're feeling the chill in the air, which is a great thing because the Pantanal gets super hot. You enjoy those cold moments and you want to remember them. Zooming across as the sun rises, but then in the evenings with sunset as well. Absolutely stunning. The temperatures drop, the color in the sky and the surrounding areas change, all while you're zooming along looking for anything that might catch the eye. May it be a jaguar walking on the bank, swimming in the water, tapir crossing the river, birds in flight, birds in trees, monkeys, caimans, anacondas. There's so much to see out there. The diversity in that place is just absolutely amazing. So as I said, tons of jaguar sightings, and we had them doing all sorts of things throughout our stay there. We had them in trees multiple times, mostly in an area known as the Black Channel. There was a female and her independent cub who also roams this area that were in that area a lot and in the trees on a regular basis, resting, staying away from biting insects, taking advantage of the cool breeze while lying up in the trees, but also using it as hunting grounds. We spent many hours sitting there hoping that these cats would just launch out of the trees, and there were a few moments where this nearly happened. They saw some movements of either caiman or something in the hyacinths. This got their attention. They looked down, they zoned in, and we thought, oh, it's going to happen. And we were hoping for a leap, but this unfortunately never happened, but it allowed for some really cool photographic opportunities in the various trees they were in. And we also got a really cool and fun moment where there was a bit of interaction between mom and her cub.
Okay, I saw it. Wow. That was cool.
Now that was a brief moment, happened about twice. The mom and cub interacted. The cub was lying up in the tree, and mom decided she's going to come and just greet and say hello to her daughter. But these cats are territorial and do get kind of worked up with each other. But because they were of same blood and family, there wasn't too much tension. We actually had a more aggressive interaction later on in the week where we had a male trying to court a female, another male coming in, and there was a bit of action there and growling and aggression, put in some very thick reeds, and we just saw kind of jumping and splashing and running around, but it was really cool to hear. But yeah, really cool sightings of jaguars in trees, but sadly no leaping and jumping, but some really great photographic opportunities. We also had jaguars, which is something very rare in the cat world, and that's cat swimming. We had lots of jaguars in the channels and the rivers, swimming up and downstream across the major Kuyaba River, which is a huge stretch of water. So these cats are just super brave, super strong swimmers with their big wide paws that help them tread through this water, and just very strong muscle, using this for hunting and getting from A to B. Obviously these cats, as I mentioned, are territorial, but we had many swim-bys and cats swimming along the rivers, and again we're hoping for some hunting action, because they hunt like this as well. When they're swimming through and past the hyacinth or some reed dense area, they look for caiman that are kind of hiding in these thicker areas, or capybaras or whatever they might find. Speaking of, we were actually sitting with a capybara male who was snuggling up and sleeping with their two youngsters, their two pups, and the female was under some reeds. And we had a jaguar that was walking up along the bank. picked up on these capybara, and it was such a dense, thick area. And these capybaras chose the perfect little spot to hide, because it would have pretty much been impossible for something to sneak up on them, because there was just so much vegetation. They would have heard it, and this is obviously what happened. We sat there watching this, and boom, jaguars made this move. Capybaras heard them and just bolted into the water. And then we got to enjoy a sighting of them swimming around us, alarm calling, going crazy, telling everyone in the area that there's a jaguar around. So we had attempts like that. We also had a jaguar swimming along and in the water, looking from hyacinth patch to hyacinth patch in some thick, dense areas, and eventually picked up on I think it was a false cobra, or spotted false cobra. It was a fish, a snake on the bank. The cat picked up on it. She ran, jumped, leaped, did her whole thing, then walked along the bank, back in the water, and then up onto the bank and disappeared. So that was a really fun and cool moment to be a part of. But sadly, again, no successful hunt while in the water. No successful hunt throughout, which was unfortunate. At least not a jaguar hunt. We saw a lot of other things hunting, which we'll tell you about in a bit. But unfortunately, no jaguar success in terms of hunting. But great success all around in terms of the jaguar front, with all of the activity and things and behaviors that they kind of showed off for us with, and that we got to document. One of which being mom and cubs. We had a number of mom and cub sightings. One of which was very, very special. There's a very well-known jaguar in the area named Patricia, and her left eye now is blind. It's been just shy of a year. I think it's been 10 months. She injured her left eye, so her one eye is white, which is a pretty cool scene to see. A jaguar swimming in the water, one white eye, one normal eye, but eerie and freaky. But a guest of ours spotted early one morning as we were zooming along, enjoying the chill and watching the sunrise. Guest of ours spotted this female and her cub along the bank. Mom was in the water, cub was up on the bank walking, and the cub didn't want to get in the water, and we didn't understand why. And eventually, when we looked back at photos, we figured that there was a massive cut, or multiple cuts, what actually looked like a big bite wound over the hips of this youngster, so some big gashes. So a possibility of it not wanting to enter the water is because of a bleeding wound. The rivers throughout the Pantanal and this wetland are full of piranha, multiple species of piranha, and this was probably the reason why cub did not want to get in the water, because it probably would have been seriously hurt by a school of piranha if they picked up on the blood in the water and started biting at the flesh on the back, because this is an area in which the cat will and cannot protect itself, and it would get seriously mauled. So cub stayed on the bank, calling, was very nervous, and this was already it was about almost a year old, this cub, but massive for a cub, but a really special sighting. We saw them a few times throughout the trip, and then later on we had a mom and a smaller cub. We actually had this particular female with her cub, an old male in the area, and just across on the one bank, and then just on the other side of the river, another male jaguar. So we had 4 jaguar in the same area, and we were literally one of 3 or 4 boats at the time, which was really special. We had a few, obviously the Pantanal is a busy place, there's a lot of boats and movements on the waters, but we were lucky to have had many sightings to ourselves, and it was nice and tranquil in terms of sightings with jaguar, and then obviously many other species in the area, which we will chat about now. And one of those species that we got to spend a bit of time with on a one-on-one basis and no one else in the area were otters. We really had great time and moments with the giant river otters. Many of the times just kind of zooming along fishing, but the one morning we had them fishing, very actively fishing right next to our boat, and they were chasing fish around. Fish were leaping everywhere. They catch 5 to 6 fish in a session. They need to eat a couple of kilograms of fish a day to keep their high activity and metabolism going. So it was really cool to watch that right next to our boat. We had moments thought fish are actually going to like leap into our boat, but we had many moments of them hunting, catching fish, and eating up in a quiet, kind of still watered area. Enjoyed that moment, and then made their way off. We also had amazing tranquil moments with no one else around at an otter den site. It's the first time I've ever seen an otter den site, and we watched them. It kind of looks like as if someone swept the front, or like a fresh piece of sand. So it's a nice sandy entrance, and we very soon figured that it was male and female kind of going, marking, sweeping, and leaving the scent in that area, which does not smell very good. But we had a number of the family members kind of interacting around this den site, sweeping, doing their thing, and then in and out of the water, moving off, looking for fish, coming back. And a couple of days later, we actually got back to this den site and saw the pups and the youngsters. But as we slowly approached, we saw them kind of scurry in. There were two out at the edge of the bank, and they scurried back in as we arrived. But very special to have seen that. Speaking of den sites and caves and something in holes, we also got to see, well, two massive anaconda. One was in the campgrounds that we stayed at Porto Joffre, and the other was in this massive hole, sleeping kind of at the waterline and the bank of the river. And eventually, with a bit of the splashing and wakes of the boats, it decided to come out, gave us a good show, moved very slowly, and we were very close to it, probably about 3 meters away, and we got to see this beautiful snake. I know most people don't like snakes, but this was a stunning sighting of what really is a beautiful animal. And she then decided to make her way and start slowly moving off and up onto the bank and to disappear. But this snake was probably about 2.5 to 3 meters in length. It was a big snake and really cool to see. Speaking of reptiles, caiman, very well known and a very common species in the Pantanal. And we had some really cool caiman moments. Like the one we were hoping for was a jaguar landing on a caiman. Unfortunately, didn't get that. But one of the great caiman moments we had was a caiman had caught a massive paco fish, and this thing was still alive and flapping around and was holding it up, trying to eat it. And because when these caimans hunt these fish, they come up onto land in order to eat it. One of which, because they can't swallow in water, they'll drown themselves, but also when they bite into this fish, the fish bleeds, and with blood comes piranha. So we had a second sighting of a caiman who had hunted a fish, and with us slowly approaching in, it kind of slowly came in and just kind of kept its head up and above the water, but the fish was lying up and in the water, and that it had caught. And these piranha were just going absolutely berserk, chowing down on what was essentially a free meal. Eventually it flicked its head, flicked half this fish carcass over the reeds, and it hung there. It looked pretty like an eerie Pantanal scene with skeletons and a reptile sitting there. But really cool to see that interaction. And then another great moment, which I've never experienced in the past, was some really cool jabiru stork, massive, huge bird, but a cool jabiru stork sighting that we had, where we were going down I think it was the Three Brothers River, and there was this channel called the Little Channel, and we saw, which was not far from a massive jabiru stork nest. They nest in huge trees, about 20, 30 meter high trees. It was in this big dead tree. And we saw them a few times, and they had chicks. So we were blown away like days earlier of zooming past this nest site, and there were 3 little chick heads there with mom and dad standing above them. On this day, we saw this jabiru stork hunting, just after we spent time with otters hunting, which was so much fun. But we had this jabiru stork catch a small catfish. Took that in and then started drinking a bit of water, and our guide then sat there and said, hey, this nest is just behind us. Let's stick with this, and when it takes off, we'll zoom off to the nest, which is exactly what we did. And we followed this bird to the nest as it took off, and it was such a cool moment. And again, we were the only people in the sighting, where this jabiru stork came in, regurgitated the fish to one of the chicks. I don't know how they choose who gets to eat, but they've got a massive pouch in which they can store water and food in order to regurgitate for their chicks. But we got to watch that interaction, and then as that one landed, either the male or the female took off. The one who was sitting in the nest, because there'll always be one adult with the nest, took off to another part of the river, took in some water, came back and started feeding or providing water for these youngsters, which was such a special moment to be a part of, and probably one of my standout highlight sightings of the trip was that very moment with the jabiru stork. And on the bird front, we had many other great bird sightings. On the waters, while out on the boat, I mean, there's birds everywhere. That place is a bird lover's heaven. But also in camp, we had really great hyacinth macaw sightings in camp. I nearly said Taraka, not Taraka. Toucan sightings in camp. Walking around, photographing and documenting them in the campgrounds, which was very cool. And then obviously tons of parrots, lots of raptors. Speaking of raptors and birds of prey or birds who eat dead things, we had a really great sighting of a black vulture who, again, we were coming down one of these small little quiet channels all alone, and we had seen a dead caiman floating upside down in the water, and we just drifted past, photographed some birds and tons of kingfishers hunting things and eating things. I mean, I really do not want to be a fish in the Pantanal. If I had the choice, that would not be the place I'll be a fish, because a lot of fish get eaten by the caimans, the birds, the snakes. Jaguars will hunt fish. Like everything eats fish there, and I wouldn't want to be a fish in the Pantanal. But we were spending good time with birds hunting fish, and as we came drifting back down, vultures had picked up on this dead caiman sitting on a branch, and we were photographing it a bit, and eventually this vulture caiman jumped up. Wow. This bird jumped up, landed on the caiman, and kind of found its balance, and then started feeding on this caiman, which was a really special moment and something that, again, was unique and different, and something that I've never really seen before in the Pantanal, which was, I've seen many dead caiman, but I've never seen the cleanup crew in action. So that was really fun. Great skimmers and turns and all that kind of stuff in throughout the days. But we had one particular skimmer beach where tons of skimmers. I've never seen so many skimmers in my life. So that was really a special moment. Something that's always very special in the Pantanal will be tapir. And on I think it was our last morning, as we were zooming out, our boat driver, who is incredible, and including our local guide, Raphael, like the two of them were an incredible dream team. But the eyes on Alan, who was our boat driver, is insane. And he spotted this tapir crossing the Cuiaba River with almost no light early in the morning, racing out to get to the more productive tapir, or more productive jaguar areas. We had a brief moment of this tapir kind of swim past us, swim along the bank, and then up and out. Very shy, scared, wary animals, although they're the biggest mammal to be found in South America. They don't like being seen. They prefer the dense forest areas and to stay away from humans. And then another fun activity and standout, and I'm close to the end here, is we got to do some piranha fishing, which we got to do last year as well. And it's always so much fun after a great, successful, productive day. Doing some piranha fishing is always fun, and not many people, I think, get to say, hey, I've caught a piranha before. So we caught two different species of piranha. Each guest got to catch one, or each guest who were keen to do some fishing got to pull out a piranha, which was a lot of fun. But then I think a standout, I know I'd mentioned that jabiru sighting was a big standout moment for me, but I think in terms of one thing that in terms of the jaguar front, what really stands out for me was you always dream for various sightings and behaviors of jaguar out in the field, and one of which is jaguars on beaches, because along these rivers there are beautiful white sand beaches, and this year we had some ridiculous jaguar on beach sightings. I've never, in all the years visiting the Pantanal, have I ever had as many, but as quality as well as quantity sightings of jaguars on beaches as I did this year. One of which stands out very clearly. We found a male jaguar who we were the only boat with, and he crossed when another boat came into the scene, and throughout that whole morning it was either just us or 4 or 5 other boats when it got busy. But the tranquil beach moments when he was on the clearest of beaches, the cleanest of sands, and doing exactly what we wanted him to do, it was literally at one point just us, because we spent so much time with him that morning. It was a good couple of hours. But when he walked on this massive open beach where we anchored and we sat there and we predicted he's laying resting on this beach, he might get up and kind of walk around the side and it'll be amazing. We were in like prime position. And then what he had done for us is he got up after walking along that beautiful beach, but he got up after kind of napping there and stretching and grooming. He went down for a drink, which was incredible, and with no other boats in the area at that time. I think there was one behind us. We had this beautiful opportunity to do pano stitching and shoot wide and get this cat on the side of a beautiful clear beach drinking, and then he decided to go lay down right there. Incredible photography yet again, shooting in tight, getting this beautiful water beach as a backdrop with the jaguar sitting there. And then eventually what we all wanted him to do is get up and walk towards us and all the way around this beach. And with us being anchored there, it was just the prime and perfect position. And as I'd said, we were one of 2 boats in that sighting, which was a great way to end it off. That was closer to the end of our trip. I think it was the last afternoon. We all sat there with umbrellas trying to stay cool because the sun is piping hot out there. But it was well worth it, and the entire trip was just such a good success. I came home with, it very rarely happens where I come home with over 5,000 images. I was just under 8,000 images that I came home with from this trip, so there was a lot of action. I know the guests spent a lot of their time shooting as well and photographing, so I think they got a few more images than I do and have to sort through a lot more. But that is a sign of a very successful trip, is when you're leaving with a massive bank full of great imagery and videos. We had a great group. Everyone got on really well. Our guides were phenomenal. And days out there are long. If you are planning on looking at joining us on a Jaguars of Pantanal Safari, I've got there for next year, and then we're pretty much fully booked for our 2 trips next year. So get in touch if you want to join me. I'd love to have you as a part of the journey. It really is one of my favorite places. But just be prepared for long days. It's an early start and early breakfast, and we're out on the river by 5:45 in the morning, probably in at around noon, so 1 o'clock in the afternoon. A quick lunch, a bit of downtime, and then back out by 2:30 to spend majority of the times out there, because your jaguars and your cats are moving in the heat of the day, unlike any other cats out there. Their behaviors and the times in which they move and how they hunt and why they move, so different to any other cat in the world. So we just maximize time out there and truly just become one and connect with nature. And it really is a special destination, a special safari. The guides are incredible, and I have no doubt that you will absolutely love the experience. And if you've been and you want to go back again, please get in touch. If you haven't been yet and you've got questions, please get in touch. I'll be more than happy to assist. And I thank you for taking the time to tune into my Pantanal update, all the way from, I'm currently sitting in Tasmania, in Australia. But thank you for taking the time, and I look forward to hearing from all of you in the near future. Have a good one for now. Bye-bye.